Greetings all, Ferrariman 601 here. It is a very rare and very special occasion in sim racing when something happens that is truly unique, out of the box, and extraordinary. Today is one such very special occasion. RaceSim Studio have released this, the Formula Hybrid 2017. For the first time ever, as far as I am aware, a modding team has come together and put together a project based on real-world regulations to result in creating a fictional car from the ground up of their own design, simply for all of us to enjoy in sim racing. The product of their efforts is this, the Formula Hybrid 2017. Those were my words upon reviewing for the first time this car as it came to us in March of 2017, Formula Hybrid 2017. Why are we taking a second look at this absolutely groundbreaking car? Well, RaceSim Studio within the past week have decided, well, it's time to go back and reimagine Genesis. They have revamped, revitalized, and re-released, now in version 4.0, Formula Hybrid 2017. This was the first car that RaceSim Studio ever brought to market. Of course, it was the first one that I ever drove of theirs, and, well, it was the first time that all of us ever got to see what this little group from England can do in the world of Assetto Corsa. I must say that my expectations upon seeing this car in 2017, they were very tempered. I had never heard of the group before. I had seen some members of the group in some other modding groups previously, the Virtua Simulazione group, the Formula Corsa group, but really, I didn't know really what to expect, and, well, my expectations were pretty low. After I did my first run in Formula Hybrid 2017, though, those expectations were entirely inverted, and now I suddenly began to expect the world from this group. And in the 5 years since releasing Formula Hybrid to the world, and after 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 X variants of the Formula Hybrid series, RaceSim Studio have absolutely stamped their mark of authority on the state-of-the-art of Assetto Corsa modding. And now they've decided to go back to where it all started. They have gone in and they have reworked Formula Hybrid 2017. They have brought it up to the standards to which they can now achieve absolute legendary perfection in Assetto Corsa mod design. And now here it is, version 4.0. What have we got going on here? Well, by and large, it is very much the same car that we had back in March of 2017. I still can't believe that we got this car a week after winter testing ended. Actually, I think it was within a week after winter testing for 2017 ended, and this thing was released to the world. Nobody really had any idea what to expect of not just RaceSim Studio, who were these guys, but of Formula One in general. What were we going to see in the radically changed regulations for the 2017 season? Big wings, big tires, high downforce, lots of power. Well, 2017 turned out to be one of the more memorable seasons in recent memory, and unfortunately it was really the last season where we had a two-horse race for the championship, although I think you can find some podcasts I might have done with Sim Racing 604 in the past where I called it a 1.5-horse race because, well, yes it was, remember Baku everybody, but this is what RaceSim Studios' interpretation was. As I said back in my 2017 review of this car, and I'll say it again here, this was a ground-up interpretation of the 2017 Formula One technical regulations. It was designed to be fictional, but it was designed to be an engineering study. It was something that was supposed to give all of us in sim racing a chance of sampling what we might be able to expect from the real-world Formula One guys in 2017. And I still can't believe how close RaceSim Studio got it. In the years that have passed, and of course I have gotten to become very familiar with the RaceSim Studio group, I talk to those guys regularly. They are a great bunch of guys, by the way. I learned that the development for this car started about midway through 2016, and it was all set and ready to go by Christmas 2016. So really, nobody had any idea what to expect from these 2017 regulations at that time, but these guys absolutely hit the nail on the head, and in the 5 years that we have had since, we've done tens of thousands of laps, if not millions of laps, between all of us sim racers in this car, and the correlations between what this car gives us in the sim and what the real-world cars gave us in reality, they are quite striking and I would say bang on accurate in terms of what we saw versus what we can do, both back then as well as still today, as this car has come back with a new lease on life. That new lease on life, well, I'm not entirely sure why Racing Studio have done it. Obviously, within the last month, we have also gotten Formula Hybrid X 2022 Evo, which itself is a revamped version of Formula Hybrid X 2021 in its initial 2020 release. And now they've gone in and they've given that same treatment to Formula Hybrid 2017, or Formula Hybrid full stop, as it was known back then. And you've got more of the same. These guys, obviously, they always do a great job with every release, but as with anything that anybody does, the more you do it, the better you get. And the same is true with Racing Studio. They have released a whole bunch of cars since this debut project, and, well, they've gotten better at what they do. Therefore, they have gone back in and they have reworked the model significantly on this car. They've not added so much in terms of macrocosmic elements on this car. They've not gone in and redone the wings. They've not redone engine covers and things like that. But what they have done is they've taken what was here and they've just said, well, what would we do today if we were going to be releasing this for the first time? And that's basically what you get here. Obviously, you've got a whole bunch of new skins on this car, most of which, if not all of which, I believe feature the names of some stalwart Racing Studio supporters, and they were gracious enough to put my name here on the number 47, so yes, I've got my name on this one now, which really, I've got to say, it's very cool, because this car made such an impression on me back when it was initially released, and it's the reason why I became a Racing Studio fan, and it's the reason why I decided to do all of these reviews of all of their products, because they deserve it, and any little bit of publicity that I can drum up for them, it's the least I can do, because there are quite literally thousands of combined man-hours that go into making any one project like this, let alone the couple dozen cars, when you count all of their GT packs, that they have given us since 2017. So my hat's off perpetually to these guys. The car itself, it is very much the same as what we had. We don't really have any changes in terms of the technical specifications. It remains powered by the V6 turbo hybrid engine, the V6 engine at 90 degrees bank angle, mounted longitudinally amidships just behind the fuel tank there. It still runs through an 8-speed semi-automatic gearbox, paddle shift, of course. We've still got an MGU-K and MGU-H, as real-world Formula 1 had in 2017, and as it still has right now. The engine and driveline, they are conspiring to produce 575 Newton-meters of torque through a car that weighs 728 kilograms. So at 980 horsepower, that means that we have a greater than 1-to-1 power-to-weight ratio. We've got about 0.74 kilograms per horsepower on this car. 239 objects and 242,007 triangles are the specs on the model per Content Manager. What more can you say? This car was, I believe, around the neighborhood of 110 to 120,000 polygons in its initial guises, so they've basically gone in and doubled the resolution on this model just because they can. In addition, and you'll see this later when we get the car out on track, but they have also gone in and they have updated the tire textures. You can see a little bit of this here right now. These tire textures, again, that came out with Formula 1990 V12. They have imported them through every car that they've released since, more or less. We've got them on the Formula Hybrid X Evo. We've got them on Formula Hybrid 2021, and I believe we're going to have them on a few other cars that will be forthcoming, but yeah, they've gone in and they've done that. They've also made the tire sidewalls change colors depending on the tire compound that we've got. We've got softs, medium, and hards, and you'll see the tire sidewall colors change as a result of all of that. But just beyond the details that we've got, the resolution that we have on this model, it's just so much more refined and so much improved over what we had initially. And that's not to say what we had initially was not at all adequate. It certainly was very more than adequate. But now, in 2021, 5 years removed from that initial release, it's just visibly better, and all of that is due to the experience that Racing Studio have acquired in continuing to give us all of these products. But I mean, just looking in close, and you can see, aside from where it's intentional around the numbers there, because they've gone for that sort of almost diamond plate metal or ice sort of finish, not quite sure what to say, the font there, or at least the stylization of the font there on the 47 is supposed to be, it looks kind of like ice to me. But no pixelation anywhere that there really shouldn't be. No weird jagged edges on the model anywhere. The front wing, which is very complicated, although nowhere near as complicated as they later would become in 2018. But all of the intricacies there with the flap elements. Looks like we've got 4 flap elements there on the wings there, in addition to the cascades, which of course are now banned and have been since 2019. It's all there, and it all looks absolutely glorious. They have retained, and I'm quite happy to report this little animation. If you press the space bar, the car comes to pieces, the wheels come off, the wheel nuts actually come off as well, the suspension unloads, the headrest comes out, and the DRS flap opens up. And just as we had on the initial release, it then enables us to get in closer and take a look at some of the details that are hidden by the wheels. We've got our brake discs and our calipers mounted low down there. They now have the Racing Studio logo on them. You can see the backer plate there that holds the brake disc in across the wheel hub and stub axle. That all looks fantastic with the fasteners there. The drum that is technically part of the brake duct to help ram high-speed, high-pressure air into there for brake cooling. What else have we got? Around the rear zone, you can see more detail now. There's the big tire. Again, rear brakes, very similar to the fronts. You can see the threads on the stub axle. That is attention to detail. You've got threads on the stub axle, which of course the wheel nut would interface with, and if you're Mercedes at Monaco, they will become permanently fused together. But that's the level of detail that we've come to expect from Racing Studio, and now that is the level of detail that we have on their first ever product. You've got some little gills here in the bottom of the rear wing end fence there on both sides. The nicely sculpted end fence proper, though, that remains from the original. Rear crash structure, we've got new carbon texturing on the rear crash structure as well as on the diffuser, so all of that looks fantastic. The rear suspension, the wishbones there with the carbon texturing, it looks fantastic. Some new texturing on the exhaust outlet there, but I'm pleased to announce that the heat illuminescence, the incandescence, that's the word I'm looking for. The incandescence effect that you get from that exhaust pipe as the revs increase and your throttle angle opens up, that has remained. I love that little detail on the original car, and CC was quite offended that nobody noticed it. So, CC, I noticed it. Anyway, onto the shadowed side of the car, you can see some more contrast now between the skin and the bolt heads there that are holding the different external bodywork panels on. The shark fin, obviously, and the little TV antenna winglet has remained. Unfortunately, Twitter banned those, but I quite liked them. Really, though, it's absolutely great to see all of this. The louvers and gills there around the fuel tank, they remain. The little T-wing there, the auxiliary camera mounts, they remain. The T-wing on top of the roll hoop, that remains. That's absolutely great. Cockpit mirrors, the barge boards, the turning vanes, they're all pretty much unchanged from the original spec of the car. But they just look so much nicer now. It's really appreciated. If we go into the cockpit, the car will undress itself again. All right. If we go into the cockpit, you can see largely unchanged in terms of macrocosmic detail, but the details themselves, the finer details, they have been greatly updated. We've got these little fastener head details now in the bulkhead there on either side of the carbon workup. That looks great. We've got the chassis plate down there. We've got across the right-hand bulkhead, we have some controls here for radio and strat switch. We've got an engine kill. We've got a fire bottle trigger there. We've got the seat and the seat belts. We've got a serial number of some sort, which I'm now going to have to look at in FreeCam. Look at that. Interesting. Not quite sure what they are. They are electrical linkages of some sort, some sort of conduit, but that's cool. We have got a chassis plate. There we go. Yes, RSS 001. That is what you call commitment to perfection, and they're still willing to put their name on this car and acknowledge it as the first one. So it's very special, and honestly it's strange to talk this way about a racing car that doesn't really exist. But it is a classic, and it is very much something that carries a story, and Racing Studio, since releasing this car, have obviously become quite the successful real-world company in their own right as far as the sim racing world is concerned, and this is what started it. The steering wheel, it is very much the same as we got in the initial release of the car, but it has been just reworked a little bit with some new textures. The buttons are a bit sharper. The carbon layup in the wheel structure itself is a bit sharper, and it looks a little bit more convincing. The display, I think, has gotten a little bit of a font change, which actually does make it a little bit easier to read out on track, which I do very much appreciate. What else do we see? Do we have any details behind it? You better believe we do. There's the quick release collar. So you could remove the steering wheel from the steering column to extricate the driver. That looks good. Paddles on the back. We have got the upshift and downshift paddles and clutch paddles there, and we've got a secondary set of paddles which would be for whatever you would want if you were going to be building this car and drive it in reality. A lot of drivers like to map either the manual KERS deploy or the DRS or any number of things. The drivers like to map to the backside of the steering wheel on that secondary set of paddles, but I look at it as gear shift because that's all I've got with my paddles here. I've only got one set of them on the back of my steering wheel, so they are what they are. But getting in close, you can see the main rotary switch. Not only do they have the RSS logo colors, but they've also got Race Sim Studio embossed into it. Have a look at that. Detail? Yeah, you'll never see that when you're driving the car, but it's there. That's pride, folks. The display here, everything turned off, of course, but you'll see all of the information that we will have. Rotary switches there for, in the real world, they could be for anything from differential adjustments to engine modes to radio volume even if they wanted. Really, really fantastic. Neutral button, pit confirm button over there, reverse, pit lane speed limit. That one is labeled there, that one rotary as ERS, so that would be the ERS harvest or deploy settings. Auxiliary oil feed, bite point find, acknowledge, brake bias, plus 10, plus 20. Some more rotaries down there for who knows what. Really, it's fantastic. And you know what? This is probably going to be well down the road for this company, but if ever they wanted to do some sort of collaboration with Thrustmaster, make this steering wheel for the TSPC or the TSSW or whatever they've got now, bases, because I would buy it in a heartbeat. It would be an absolutely fantastic steering wheel to have. It looks like it's the right sort of shape. It's got a display on it, which I know a lot of people like. It's got lights and all of that. It's got 4 rotaries. It's got 3 additional rotary toggles mounted horizontally there on the bottom. I like that a lot. Make that steering wheel in reality, Race Sim Studio, please and thank you. But, yeah, pulling away, all in all, it's very much the same car that we had in 2017, but it's just a bit better. And I like that. I like that immensely, I must say. It's been a long time and long-standing favorite of mine, and I'm quite pleased to see that it's finally gotten some more recognition from the guys who created it in the first place, because it is a fantastic car in its own right. I don't feel that it necessarily has ever been superseded by any of the Formula hybrids that have followed it. And obviously, it's no longer the fastest, it's no longer the most highly detailed. I don't even say that it's necessarily the easiest to drive in terms of accessibility, because the 2019 and 2020 cars are just downforce monsters, and they will grip no matter what you do. And this is very much the same. But it's a little bit more rough around the edges, simply because, well, it's a little bit older than those, and as Formula One cars go, they're only current for one day. And now 5 years down the road, it feels quite dated in some regards, but honestly, it's still my favorite out of all of them. And, well, I guess we're just going to have to take a trip around Silverstone to go down memory lane a little bit and pay some homage to Formula Hybrid 2017. Welcome to Silverstone. Here it is, Formula Hybrid 2017 version 4 here in the pit lane, and in shadow very much, as you can see by the they're still calling it the new pit building, I guess, but loaded up into the sim proper, and well, it looks just as good here as it did in showroom, if not a little bit better, because now all of the attitudes are correct in terms of what the suspension is doing and dynamic weights and things like that. Looks absolutely fantastic. There's the rain light merrily flashing away there. See the nice modeled appearance there in the exhaust pipe. I like all of that. Very cool. Carbon reflections now really coming into their own. Love it. Absolutely love it. There's the top of the roll hoop with the status light for the KERS. Blinking green because we're in the pit lane, but also green because the car is safe, so you could touch the thing and you would not run into too many problems with electrocution hazards. And then there we are, the cockpit with, I suppose, my head. Interesting. Into the cockpit proper, we'll go through what we've got instrumentation-wise with everything up to speed here, at least ignition-wise. Got no fuel on board, so the engine is dead. But you can see our lap time across the top there merrily ticking past 2:14. Below that, we're going to have our last lap time And then to the right of that, we're going to have our delta, where we got the 3 hash marks for the moment. Across the left-hand column, we've got our fuel level. That's going to cycle between red toward the bottom and green toward the top to show our higher and lower fuel levels. Right now, with no fuel on the car, it's all blank. Below all of that, we've got tire pressures. You can see from left to right and top to bottom, we have got left front, left rear, and right rear. They're all showing 9 psi at the moment, except for the left front, which is showing 8, I believe. That's interesting. No tire blankets on the car, though, so they are all at ambient. Below all of that, front and center, obviously we've got our gear position indicator showing neutral right now. And then as we go up through the gearbox, which we couldn't do in reality with the engine off, but there we go, up into 8th gear, and then down back through the box into first and neutral, and then one more pull on the left pedal for reverse, and then back up into neutral. The big 0 in the center there, colored in orange, that is our speed in kilometers per hour. Up toward the upper right, we have got engine RPM, which is showing 0 right now as the engine is not running. And then we have got, on the extreme right-hand panel, we have got our status indicators for the state of charge in our Corsa battery. The right-hand gold bar, that is our allotment per lap. And then the blue bar is the overall state of charge for the master battery capacity that we have got in the car. Across the top of the steering wheel, we will have shift lights that come up green, red, and blue for our upshift. And then we will have a status light for the ERS. It comes on when I hit the manual deploy button there. And then we'll have our DRS as well on the opposite left side, which is inactive at the moment because we are not in a DRS zone. But that about covers the instrumentation that's herein available. Having a look at the steering wheel itself, new gloves as well, and all around a new driver model for this update on Formula Hybrid 2017. So the gloves look very nice. You can see the weave in the Nomex mesh there. Very much do appreciate all of that stuff. And you can also see, generally speaking, what our mirrors are showing us. I've got the real mirrors extension loaded up here, so we are seeing mostly our own car in the mirrors, as you would expect in a car like this. But you do get a decent picture in the mirrors anyway, and additionally, if you're in a race situation or other cars on track with you, you've got the proximity arrows to help you immensely. So that about covers the cockpit, and of course, this is the driving view that you're going to see most often, unless you happen to get into a situation where the sky is below you. So, back into the pits, where we will put some fuel on board. We're also going to have the hard tires here for this first run, just to get into generalities, I guess, about how the car is going to be operating. We'll turn off the hybrid system in terms of our deploy, and we'll leave everything basically as we see it. Silverstone is a medium to high downforce circuit, so we've got medium to high downforce there loaded in. In terms of our flap angles, we don't have any visual angle of attack adjustments here in terms of our front or rear flaps, but we do have the adjustments duly modeled between 0 and 30 degrees on the front, and then the whole number on the rear wing. That's not a degree per se adjustment, but it is an adjustment in terms of where the holes are in the rear wing. In fact, we can go show you. Rear wing right here, you can see that we have got these holes in the rear wing. These bolt heads, these Allen key heads really, that is where the flap is attached to the end fence. And if you change the attach point of the flap, you thereby change the angle of the flap, which then means you change the level of downforce that you're going to be generating. So this is what that corresponds to. The higher number obviously is more downforce. Brakes, brake bias, and brake power, nothing really of note there. Drivetrain and power coast and preload for our diff. I like an open diff, so we've got an open diff. And then suspension, first screen, we've got camber and toe on all 4 corners. Dampers here, we've got fast and slow bound and rebound for all 4 corners. Heave spring, or the third spring, we've got all 4 corners represented here. Suspension in roll, so we've got wheel rates, ride heights, travel ranges, and anti-roll bars front and rear here. Various is just the steer assist, which I really never touch. And then, of course, your ubiquitous pit stop strategy page. So we'll get some fuel up in this thing, and we'll see what it does here on the hardest available tires. We do have the range. Watch the sidewall there. Probably see it easier on the left-hand side, but we've got hard, medium, soft, super soft, and ultra soft. The the ultra soft and super soft both have red sidewalls. I don't believe that there's any other variation in them. Let's see. Ultra soft,
Oh, yep, we do have the variation there. We've got a more contiguous red sidewall on the Super Soft versus the Ultra Soft that just has the lettering. Probably the same story for the Soft there. Yep, we've got the continuous gold bar there with the gold lettering. Medium is all white, and then the hard tire is the white lettering without the white banding. So we've got the hard tire fitted for our purposes right now. We'll put some gas on, and we'll just see how she goes. Well, absolutely loaded up. 142 liters is our maximum fuel capacity. Everything is up to life now. Bring our pedals up so we can see what's going on, generally speaking, with that. We've got good calibration on everything, and we do. And of course, now you can hear the sounds. The sounds have been updated very gently. They are, I feel like they are enhanced in terms of being a little bit higher quality in terms of definition. There's not as much distortion in the sounds anymore. There's also a really cool effect that happens at around 240, 250 kilometers an hour that I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear it with me talking to you, but I'll point it out when we hear it. Clutch in first gear, bring the revs up a little bit, and just let it go. And on to the racetrack here at Silverstone in Formula Hybrid 2017. It feels so strange to be saying that, but we are saying that. Very much not a new car, but a revitalized one, and one that I'm very attached to, I have to say. I've grown to have quite an affinity for this car over the years. I would say it means a lot to Race Sim Studio as well. My initial review of this car was one of the more successful sim racing review videos that I've done, and, well, I suppose for that reason it has some meaning for me as well. In the mirrors there, lots of overrun flame out of the exhaust. Like all of that immensely. Starting to get some speed up here. Going to be working on brake temperatures. Tires are going to be very difficult to get up to temperature here because they are the hardest compound, but we are full of fuel. Already feeling a little bit of understeer because of the cold tires and the heavy fuel load. In the second DRS zone, DRS is open, that system's working. Just a very deliberate warm-up here. Brakes are a little grabby as they're still coming up. Tires, of course, are contributing to that. There we go, about 220 clicks, actually. You start to get an interesting sound effect, which is, I believe, something new for RSS cars. It's certainly new for this one. The engine note here in the cockpit gets a lot quieter at that speed, and I believe what they're trying to do with that is to emulate wind noise. Obviously, at some point or another, wind noise is going to start to overpower engine noise from the point of view of the driver. Because, I mean, 280 kilometer an hour wind, you're very, very quickly approaching the strength of a Category 5 hurricane. So you're going to have a lot of noise associated with that. I'll say from having had a primer in open-wheeled cars in the real world, you hear the wind a whole lot more than you hear your own engine. But not in the way you'd expect. You've got a helmet on, so it's shielding you from a lot of the wind blast. The helmet also is muffling the engine quite a bit, but you still hear the engine, and you hear it because you're strapped in so tightly to the car, and it's your whole back is making contact with the rear bulkhead of the cockpit, so you hear the engine because the vibrations are going through you. So you're hearing the engine in your head rather than through your ears. It's very interesting. Not quite up to 300 clicks, as I'm not comfortable yet with where the tires are, but they're getting there. There's full revs at least. There's the twitch coming in. Again, very cold tire still. Well, not very cold anymore, but we got a lot of gas on board. That was a 1:44.399 that time by. This car can go about 18 seconds a lap faster than what we're doing right now. Flat out DRS. Into 8th gear. Brakes, use the entrance curbs. Use the apex curbs. Still nowhere near the limit. But starting to believe that the tires are gonna stick when I want them. We won't upshift here, we'll just breathe off the throttle and come back into it at the apex of cops over those exit curbs. Lift a little bit just for confidence, dab of brakes and a downshift. Onto Hager Straight, DRS open. There goes 300. And it still accelerates hard. One of the little quirks of FH17 has always been that 8th gear. I feel that 8th gear is just a little bit long on this car, and many people have pointed that out over the years. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because when you've got the hybrid system running, as the rear end continues to protest, the acceleration just never stops. I mean, when you get into the high gears and you start to get that wind resistance, the hybrid system with the extra 160 horsepower that it offers on top of what the engine is giving you for the combined total of 980, you've got a lot of impetus to push you through the atmosphere, and the acceleration just keeps going, and you actually can get up into very high revs in 8th gear as it is, so it's not a problem. The hybrid system, if it's not running like it's not running right now, well, it's a little bit of a hindrance, but most of the time in race conditions, you're going to be running with, at very least, the minimum hybrid deploy setting, so not an issue as far as I'm concerned. Breathe and throw it in. I'm going to breathe a lot more than that as we go a little bit wide. Right, feeling happy. We'll start to get the hybrid running. Big bump there. I was adjusting my grip. Inopportune moment to do that. Let's get the hybrid running on balanced high. We'll wind up for a quickish lap. Rear end protesting all the time. Compensate a little bit with some manual ERS. We're 8th gear through here. Got to do a big lift. There's a lot of speed. Remember, very heavy on fuel. Still more fuel than you would carry for a Grand Prix distance around here. Rear end does want to give up under acceleration on heavy tanks like this. You do have to be mindful of how you apply the power and when you apply the power, because it will catch you out without too much of an invitation. But as you launch out of a corner, you can just see the acceleration comes on, and the downforce, of course, squares with speed. You just start to pick up speed like you can't believe, and it just pulls all the way into 8th gear. In balanced high like we are right now, there really isn't any hybrid deploy in 8th gear, so you're just back to the engine power alone. Of course, when you got a long straight with DRS, that's helping you a little bit. And up to 310, 311. Rear end protesting there at about 200 clicks, trying to get on the power in 5th. Bit wide, overwhelming the tires a bit there under braking into the veil. But with the hybrid system on, we make up 1.2 seconds. With everything up to temperature, at least as well as it can be on the hardest tires and heavy tanks, you've got yourselves some latitude on which to speak about the car representatively. And, well, the experience, if you're well familiar with this car, as it has been with us for 5 years, well, it's very much the same. It has that same sort of propensity to lock the fronts under heavy braking that we got initially with this car, and as we have had this whole time. Has the same sort of proclivity to be twitchy under acceleration, particularly if you're in a corner, medium to high speed even. Not so much through the crazy high speed corners like Cops, but coming on to Hanger Straight through the left-hander, you've got yourself a twitch potential through here as well. Be careful. DRS with manual curves. There we are. 310, 320. Stove corner, always got to be careful in any car. This one notwithstanding. You do get a little bit of that lag at low revs, at low speed. The rear end protesting the entire time. 136.762. Gain a lot of time here as I've decided to hit the manual deploy there, through whatever they call that corner. I don't recognize this section of Silverstone because it's not my racetrack. The lap for me still begins on the old start-finish straight. And this corner is still called Priory in my book. Go. On the power, yes. Nearly half a second up. Find it out a bit more for more speed. Don't use 8th gear. Understeer at high speed. Caught us out on turn in. Should gain that back. Careful with the rears. There's that propensity for front locking. That was a twitch and a half. We go flat. Yes. Third gear through here, the revs drop lower obviously, but you can get on the power harder earlier, provided the rear end will behave, which it still isn't. Lots of understeer under braking. Wheel spin into 4th. That doesn't happen on the super softs or the ultra softs, I'll tell you that much. Little dab of brake here. Want to make sure we don't get understeer on turn in. Ah. Come on. It wants to come to me. It's just being held back by how heavy we're running right now. .3 seconds up. Yep, stay flat. Yes. Yep, behave. It's protesting the whole time, but it knows who is in control here. And that is something that was always a hallmark of the Formula Hybrid series. This car, as well as all of its successors, they are fantastic teaching tools. If you want to learn the sorts of mental processes that you need to, I would assume, to drive a top-level open-wheeler today, this car and the 2018, 19, 20, 21, and I assume even the 22X and 22X Evo, they really are going to do a job of enlightening you as to how these things work and how they do their bidding. They're not inaccessible in the sense that, okay, I've got 21, 22 years of experience doing this in some flavor. But if you're somebody who's just starting out, let's say you just made the transition from using a controller to now you've got your first wheel and you want to give this a go, it's a steep learning curve. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you go ahead and spend your money on this and expect to be good and quick and just easy right away, because it's not. It's not an easy car to drive because it's not supposed to be. What it is, though, it is extremely rewarding when you do know what you're doing and when you do start to learn which way is up, because what it offers is such a huge performance potential. But unlike some of the other cars that Racing Studio have made, unlike the Formula 1990 V12 or unlike the Formula 2000 V10, they don't demand absolute perfection. This one doesn't. None of the Formula Hybrids really do, because they're well newer in terms of design and in terms of the eras that they're trying to emulate, as well as just they're bigger, they're longer, they're heavier. They don't have as much top-end grunt. They've got a lot of bottom and mid-range torque, but the F90 and the F2000, all the power is well up at the top of the rev range. So you've got to drive in a very high-strung manner in order to get the most out of them. This, you can come up to gradually. You can sort of approach it at your leisure, and it will offer you performance at every level. And then as you improve and you just sort of instinctually start to press beyond what your current capacities are, the car will be there for you. And it will show you how you can be quicker. It will show you, hey, maybe you're doing this wrong, or maybe you're doing this really well. And it will reward you for making those adjustments or for sticking to those good habits that you developed. So it's a teaching aid just as much as it is a bit of fun. Or for example, through these corners, I used a little bit too much throttle there intentionally, and you see the rear end started to complain. That's what this will do, right? If you try that in Formula 2000, you're just going to spin like a top. This, you're going to fix it. And here as well, hard onto the power. It gives you the opportunity to adjust. In that instance, I could adjust with steering angle. We had a little bit more slip angle, I'd have to back out of the throttle. But the car shows you what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. Right now with that understeer under braking, it's showing me that I probably need to bring the brake bias back a little bit. A little wide. We're about to run out of power in our main system. It's okay. Switch it to battery mode and we'll start to recharge a little bit on the straights. There you go. We moved the brake bias rearward a little bit. That corner entry understeer is mostly gone. And you can see we've gained almost half a second on that lap. So you see what I mean? Even totally not in qualifying trim at the moment, on the hardest tires and full of gas, you can just see how accessible the performance is. After you do some laps and you just observe yourself and you listen to what the car wants you to do with it, you start to understand the pattern and you start to extract pace. And again, just that simple communication from the car of, I'm getting understeer on turn-in as I'm coming off the brakes. Move the brake bias back a little bit. It gained me time there through Woodcut Corner. So that's how easy it is, if you're being observant, that is. Turn the hybrid system off and just let it charge. We'll come into the pits. You notice here, even at pit lane speed, the hybrid system is still charging because we're on battery mode. But all in all, what have we got here? Well, we've got something that, as you can see, running it in really the slowest trim that we can run it in for the moment, hard tires and heavy fuel, it's still very accessible. You don't have so much of a nervousness in this car. I mean, you do, rear end protesting there through the medium speed corners, trying to get the power down. That's just going to happen because it is the nature of the beast. Physics is physics. But it's accessible. It's not to the point where you've got to be really well versed in this in order to get any sort of performance out of it at all. I mean, again, it's not like the Formula 2000. It's not like the Formula 1990. It's accessible. You can approach it. It's not this untamable beast that you've got to be just experienced in order to get the most out of. You can approach this car and it will show you what to do. It's kind of self-explanatory. Yes, the hybrid system, you've got to manage that, and that comes with, again, experience, comes with practice, comes from reading the descriptions on the setup screen, really. And I mean, once you do start to get up to speed with it and you start to feel confident, and that's when the performance really comes in, because this car's also got a lot of downforce, and it's also got a lot of mechanical grip available when you do throw the softer tires on, and that's a lot of fun, which we shall have next. Right, so back into the pit screen with us, and what are we talking about here? We're talking about a 134.875 as our best lap of the session, and you can see that that came on lap 11, our last timed lap. And, well, that's pretty slow. It's indicative of what the car is capable of doing in this trim. But there's another, about 8 seconds that we can find, depending on what sorts of fuel load we've got. So if we put, let's not be too crazy here. We'll put 25 liters on board. We won't touch anything else. We'll put our MGUH back to motor, leave it in charging mode for leaving the pits. And if we put a set of the Ultra Softs on, well, these tires in race pace will probably last about 10 laps anyway before they completely go to hell. For qualifying, well, they're going to last 2, maybe 3, and that's if you have a cool-down lap in the middle. So they're not very durable, but they are quite grippy. Back in the cockpit, 142.735 is the benchmark, for better or worse. Give it a go. See the red sidewalls now on those front tires. I like that. Also, quite obviously, no halo on this car. Forgot to point that out because, well, it's not in front of me. That's, of course, the last Formula Hybrid, the only Formula Hybrid not to have halo, because 2017 was the last time that Formula 1 did not use halo. We'll just be deliberate here. Bring the tires up without scorching them too bad. Already incredibly enhanced grip, and these tires aren't even fully up to temperature yet. And of course, the car is a good 100 kilos lighter than it just was. So all of that comes together to make, well, it's faster. It's an awful lot faster. It feels like a completely different car when it's all set up for qualifying. A lot of that nervousness on the rear is gone. Right, let's go. 142.735 to beat. What'll it do? Yep. Minimum speed of 299 there through turn 1. You can just lock your eyes onto the apex and it'll go there. Wheel spin through 3rd and 4th gear is now gone. Up 1.2 seconds already in Sector 1. That's 3.4, well, 2.4, 2.5, yep. 8th gear, flat, easy. Easy flat, gained a half a second in one corner. .8 seconds, 3.9, 4 seconds. Mark, 4 seconds. How about that? Four and a half. .5. Yep, 129.416. How about that? 5.5 seconds per lap just by changing the tires and taking some gas out. That is what this car can do. Again, you're going to learn so much from this. That's 2/10 already in 3 corners. Let it go wide. Use the understeer to change your angle on the exit. You can get on the power earlier and enjoy that launch to gain another 3/10. Easy flat. Minimum speed 290. There's 8/10 up on the previous lap. That was me being a little bit greedy, using a lot of curb and then some. We're still up 4/10. You see what I mean? You can make a blatant mistake like that and you're still going to gain time because you're learning all the time and the car is going to be there for you. Look at that. Sends it to the line and we'll do a cool down. 128.866. We'll charge. I guess it's really a quali sim what we're doing here. Hybrid system off. We're down 1.3, 1.4. .9, 2 seconds. You see how the time just falls away. A couple presses of a button also really changes what the car does and how it does its bidding. Right. Back to motor. Go hot lap. And send it. And even there on a charge lap, still faster basically than what we were doing on the hards on full tanks. A little bit of front locking there. Let's try to control it. Bit of understeer mid-corner at low speed. Pull that brake bias back like we did last time. Should work. Hello, cops. Goodbye, cops. Let's not screw it up here. Through Mackets and Beckets. All of a sudden, we're in a negative delta. Now, running in hot lap mode like this is not ideal for this track because we run out of power right before the line, like, well, basically right now. So I tend to run in balanced high and then manually deploy in 8th gear when I want it. But for some circuits, the hot lap mode works just fine. In the initial release of this car, there used to be deploy maps that were circuit specific. Like I remember there was a Silverstone map, there was an Imola, there was a Mugello, Monza, things like that. And Race Sim Studio moved away from that reasonably early on in this car's life, and I don't know, it was probably a little bit too labor intensive for them because they would come up with a deploy mode and then it was based on their numbers from their own testing. Well, not everybody is going to like how that system is going to deploy the power. So I would say that a lot of people didn't use them. I didn't particularly use them. It was a cool idea, felt interesting, but in the end of the day, it didn't do much, so they went away with it. It was cool, though, that they attempted to do something like that. And I don't know, maybe as a I don't know, a final swan song for this car, maybe put that back. I don't know. Doesn't really add anything other than it's a novelty. Now you can see we have got some power left. So that boosts us over the line. It keeps us negative into the next lap. Drive it to the apex, drive it through the exit, keep it in 3rd gear, drive it to the apex again, get on the power hard, deploy all the boost juice, DRS. Let it run up past 320. Brakes, throw it in early, let that AstroTurf on the inside come to you. Power out. Keep it pinned through cops. We missed the apex, but we salvage the exit a bit. We lose a few hundredths. All the entrance curbs. There we go. That's how that's done. 6/10 under. We're out of power for this lap. Hopefully we can maintain some of that 6/10 surplus. That's beautiful. 128.233. Session best. And that's all well and good because that's about all she wrote in terms of the fuel load, and about all she wrote in terms of the ultimate pace of the tires. They're a little bit more durable than, say, the 3 hot laps that I told you in the pit lane, but not much, and you certainly wouldn't want to be going flat out during a race anyway, because number one, you're full of gas, so you can't go totally flat out. And beyond that, you don't want to be making a pit stop every 5 to 10 laps, because that's no good. But I really gotta say, this car is 5 years old. For the most part, it was put together in 2016. It was put together without any real-world references for the cars it was seeking to emulate. And after 5 years, it's just gotten what, in reality, is actually a pretty minor revamp. I mean, it's actually pretty major in terms of the work that went into it, but all in all, it's the same car, really, and it still feels fresh. It still feels exciting. It's still something that I actually want to drive. This thing was released, as of the time of recording this, 3 days ago. This is the only car I've driven in those 3 days. It's really, really, really good. Still. And I remember also recalling the review that I did in 2017, I remember pointing out one bug in that review, and it was this. Right here, just having the steering wheel turned over 180 degrees. Doesn't look like much. The driver's arm position didn't just gradually go from crossed over to, you know, that. It went back to this position, but the wheel was inverted, and that was the bug. The only bug on that car as it came to us brand new in 2017. Obviously that's gone, and obviously there's nothing else to report. It's absolutely magic, and I really just gotta say, Race Sim Studio, I don't entirely understand how you do what you do, but whatever it is, keep doing it, because even your oldest work, at least in terms of the oldest work that you've released under the Race Sim Studio name, it still holds up. And yes, I understand that you've revamped this one, but it's still largely the same car, and it's still good. And guess what? They're giving this to you for free as well. So, I mean, it's an absolute state-of-the-art car. Is it a little bit dated now just by virtue of the specification and the name? Yeah. Doesn't really mean anything. It's so good. It's still exactly the car that I remember from 2017, and of course I've driven it extensively ever since, but in this new specification, it's just the same in terms of how it handles. It's basically the same in terms of how it sounds, but it looks so much more refined now, and it's not to say that it didn't look refined in the beginning, but now it's up to modern spec, and it's really what this car deserves. This car is a legend. It really is. If it's possible to call something in the virtual world a classic, this is it. I mean, 5 years in the video game industry, it's really an eternity. I mean, don't even get into the fact that you still have R-Factor that's alive, and obviously Assetto Corsa now is getting on 8 years old, but 5 years in the video game industry is forever. And the fact that you've got a car that's 5 years old that's still this good, I don't know if anybody's done that before. And you've done it, RSS. You have absolutely done it. So all I can say is my perpetual hat off to you for doing this, for making this car in the first place, and then for returning to it. Nobody asked you to do this. Nobody requested, hey, it'd be really nice if you did this. But you did do it. And I'm not entirely sure what your reasoning was, but whatever your reasoning was, I am so happy you did, because this is what the car always was to me anyway. And, okay, looking past some of the rough edges, literally, that it did have in its original specification, it's magic. And now it looks like that, and it still feels just as good as it always did. And it's really a testament to how good you guys are, and it's a testament to how good it is for us as sim racers, as content creators, whatever you want to call us. It's great. I love the fact that you have the opportunity to use your skills and apply them in this way to showcase your talent and to showcase your passion for all of this. I do know that oftentimes on the Discord anyway, speaking personally, we talk about the passion that you feel. And some days it's tough, and some days people do bad things to you, and I get it, but you've still got that drive, and it's embodied all right here in this, your first product. It's a remarkable thing. And making the original video that I made when I did all those years ago, I didn't think that I would be here in 2021 talking about it again and still being just as excited about it now as I was then. So it's truly something very unique. It's remarkable. It absolutely is outside of the box. It's extraordinary. It's all those adjectives that I said off the top. And it just speaks for itself in the end. There are only so many superlatives that I could throw at it, and the car just does it. It's great. It's absolutely great. The only thing more I can say is, well, it's time to let the car speak for itself. Hot laps to come from here at Silverstone without commentary, both from trackside as well as from on board, so you can hear those sounds in all of their glory and just enjoy the visual presence that Formula Hybrid 2017 still has. It's absolutely great. It's probably my favorite sim racing mod, as a mod anyway. It's not my favorite driving mod. For those, I have to do the Formula 2000 V10 and the Formula 1990 V12, but this one, it's so... I feel like I have a history with it, and it's one of the reasons that my channel took off, because, I mean, I've probably done a couple hundred videos featuring this car in one way or another, so it's great to see it come back, and it's cool. It's really, really cool. Let the car speak for itself next. Until next time, though, stay tuned for the Hot Laps. FerrariMan601 saying thank you very much for watching, and of course, we will see you soon.